But you never truly know what's going on out there. It is marvelous that we're able to document as much as we do. So please, ladies and gentlemen, send through your questions to #SafariLive or put them in the bottom of the YouTube stream. Who's excited to see Hosana back? Let's hear a hooray. Not Hosana, Tingana. Let's hear a hooray for Tingana and Hosana, both of them in one drive, or one day. Fantastic. It's the cat double today. Pradeep, how are you doing, young sir? Age 6. You're very excited. Well, we're very excited too. Always very excited to find a leopard. And we believe James is sort of hot on the trail of Hosana, but the problem being is that the sun is starting to sink below the horizon, and there's no pause button here. If they don't manage to find him soon, they're going to have to abandon chase, or maybe spend the last few minutes and then get a pickup from somewhere safe. That's probably what's going to happen. Minamu, I don't think leopards lose their whiskers as they get old. I think the whiskers kind of will grow again if they get damaged, or it's a very important part to all sorts of sensory awareness within the cat. I was having a chat with James about it, and there's way more to it than just sort of balance and sort of distance between objects. There's so many sort of chemical signatures, and I think it's impossible for us to guess. Lots of thoughts and guesses out there, but they definitely do get damaged and they definitely do wear and tear, but I think they're quite easily replaced over time. Saskia, good question. Hosana is the son of Tingana, and at the moment there's no competition for territory. Hosana, I don't think, is territorial yet, although some people have seen him scent marking. He might just be being cheeky and trying to get away with things, but essentially he should be pushed out of the area. He should be moved away. He shouldn't be welcomed in his dad's territory. That is the leopard's work, but I don't think Hosana's read the book, and maybe Tingana read it so long what the rules are. But I don't think there will be competition. By the time Hosana becomes strong enough to compete, I think Tingana will be gone with regards to competition. Already we thought he'd potentially retired. Hosana's not a very big male yet. He's still got some growing to do. He's definitely got the potential to be a big cat. He's got his dad's genes. But I think he's just enjoying the fact that his dad's being a little bit sort of aloof in the territorial area, and he's bouncing between the areas to sort of keep a sort of safety. As soon as he leaves one of these areas and moves into an area he's never spent time in before, he's going to encounter all sorts of new and exciting, although dangerous, opportunities in the form of females that are mating. He's going to smell them. He's going to be interested. Then a male's going to come along and tell him, "Hang on, young sir, you're not welcome here. This is my territory." And then he's going to get a bit of a fright because no one's done that to him before. He's going to move on to the next one and the next one. And eventually, after he's done with moving away, he's going to say, "I would like to claim a territory. I'm big and strong enough now. I think I look like my dad." And then he'll claim one. But by that stage, generally, a leopard is much further away from their natal area than original. So many kilometers. I mean, we believe Hukumuri came from as far as Crocodile Bridge in the east, which is about 110 or 90 kilometers from here. I doubt he moved in a straight line. He would have moved up and down, and I mean, no one's seen a leopard move in a straight line unless they're walking in the road. Okay, well, we're going to stay here with this very fluffy cat and go to James, who's found something fluffy himself.
Well, I don't know how fluffy it is. It's a gathering of eggies, and I think they've probably been laid. I don't know what's laid them there actually. I was going to say a butterfly, but I actually don't think they are butterfly or moth eggs. I think that those are the eggs of something like I've seen them before, you know. Something smaller. They look like, they look a little bit like ant eggs, I guess, but they can't be ant eggs, I don't think. Maybe grasshoppers? Very difficult to say, but something's going to hatch out of there, hopefully. Well, hopefully they will. Like Steve was saying, it's going to get a little colder. Ralph was saying it's getting a little bit cooler now. And, of course, as winter sets upon us, so the insects will stop breeding and stop moving. But we've still got a bit of heat left, so maybe these ones will be lucky. Maybe they'll have to survive till next year. There's some alarm calling cisticolas behind us. Maybe they're just shouting at us. Anyway, those are the eggs. New life continues to be created out here all the time, every day. Come on, Senzo, let us not tarry. It's starting to get a little bit dark. And that process is obviously not going to be reversed. Let's have a look what these birds are shouting at. Maybe a snake. Let's just have a little walk in here quickly. With our luck, we might step on another leopard. That'd be quite fun. Or a mamba, which wouldn't be fun. This is how we found Tingana earlier today. It wasn't these birds, but it was a bird. It's a green-backed bleating warbler. Right there, Senzo. The birds in this bush here. Then you want to know what makes bird poo white? Believe it or not, I actually do know the answer to that question. Uric acid makes bird poo white. And it's because birds, like the cisticola that is shouting here, have only got one opening through which they must do all of their business. And reptiles are the same. And so what happens is the dung or feces comes out at the bottom, and then on top of that, a little pellet of uric acid, quite often, or a sort of, uric acid in solution comes out as this thick white paste on top of the dung. And that's why it is. So it's urine and feces mixed into one. That's why it's white and black. Looks like something could have been lying in there. But I don't think it was anything too recent. Perhaps the birds were just shouting at us. Cisticola is notoriously unreliable. A little bit like the squirrels, which seem to have a magnificent ability to see. And so they will shout at animals a long, long way away. All right, great stuff. Ralph's made it all the way to Inga's, where there are some impala alarm calling. Let's go and find out what they're shouting at.
Yes, everyone, we've popped on over here down to near to Vuyatela Dam, which is just down from us. There's a lot of impala here, and we did hear news that there was some alarm calling in this area from these particular impala. I think it must be them, but there's a lot of rutting kind of snorting going on, not much alarming, but we'll still sit and wait and see. There's lots of activity, but these impala don't seem too stressed out. You see that there, now that seems a little bit more like an alarm call. And, yeah. Oh, hello. That's more like it. See, there was lots of running around and chasing each other between the males, and the males trying to keep the females close by. I just want to wait a little bit before I go in there. Let's just see how these impala react. If they continue looking in that direction, and focusing as more come that way as well, then we'll definitely have to drive in there and have a look. And it's those two now making a bit of looking like they're, but then you see there's a bit relaxed. Maybe we should just go and have a wander in there, Viam. They've now stopped barking at each other and are actually alarming. So I think let's drive in a little bit. Let's go in around here and go and see just in the direction. Now they're running away a little bit, like they're being a bit skittish. So let's go and have a look. But there are some impala up the top, so I'm not convinced, but let's go on and see. It'd be wonderful if it is a leopard or even any kind of predator. You see there's some more impala here in front of us that are also looking quite relaxed. But let's move now a little bit where they're focusing. See, lots of impala around, and I'm not quite sure if these guys are that concerned about a possible predator. They have been calling, so you've got to notice that difference when they're actually rutting and chasing other males and keeping their females in compared to their real snort, alarm call. And when that real snort comes through, we might struggle a little bit to actually pick it up sometimes, but the impala don't. And when they start to call seriously, like they've got a leopard nearby, they all take notice and they all start focusing on that particular site. And they aren't then as relaxed as they might normally be. So let's just keep going through this area. We'll maybe just loop through in the hope that we can spot a leopard here somewhere, but keep our eyes open. This is this general area that they were looking and crawling towards. I haven't got my hopes up that it is actually a leopard. I'll be surprised if it is, wonderfully surprised, but I'm not convinced those impala were overly alarmed. We did see some signs, fresh signs of leopard a little while ago, but I'm not seeing. Those impala have gone quiet as well. I'm going to head up towards the road here. Let's go and have a look around Quarantine and see if anything has shown itself in this area. Sun is now just dipping over the horizon. The colors are changing into that wonderful pink and blue sort of hue, and it's getting nice and cool, so I've rolled down my sleeves. Oh, there's a couple of kudu there's a male after a female there. He's also, as I say that, I just want to find a nice spot to show you. There he is. We're quite a way away, but I just want to watch them as well. They also seem to now have got concentrated on something else. But that's a lovely big kudu bull, that. I think he was following that female. There's some birds alarm calling now. Some Franklin. Yes, it looks like he's staring at the sunset coming from FC. Definitely did look like it. Wow, look at those horns. Now, there's alarm calling behind us. I do just want to enjoy this a little bit longer because I don't want to go on a wild goose chase. Let's see if it continues. They have been going quite crazy. That's a good sign for us. But those impala were quite off-putting because there was a bit of alarm calling, and I wonder what they were alarm calling about, because then they went quiet. Unless that leopard sort of slunk off. So, while I go back in there and see what those Franklin are jittering about, let's send you on back to Steve, whose leopard has gotten up.
He has, and he's busy sniffing again. I wonder what he can smell. Can he smell fowl? Can he smell hair? Can he smell mongoose or dacre? What can you see and smell there, my boy? It'd be marvelous to be able to communicate. He could just look at the camera and say, "There's a rabbit in there." I don't know, would it be marvelous? Is he moving? Ah, there's the cat stretch. Achy bones. Just love the tip of the tail. How it's got a life of its own. He's walking very slowly. He's actually using our vehicle track that we came in on. That's a much better spot, apparently, to sit down. I don't know what all that was about, but he's moved 5 meters and now made himself invisible. Can you believe that? Look how invisible he is in the grass there. Corin, it's possible a spider bite could kill a leopard or a lion, but lions and leopards have got very thick fur, so it'd be very difficult for a spider to get through that fur. It'd have to bite them on the nose. So I don't think it's likely a spider's going to bite a leopard. Generally a spider bites because you stand on it or squash it or lie on it or something, and because the spider's got such, or the leopard and lion have got such thick fur, very difficult to get through that. So I don't think it's possible. I mean, a snake bite I think is more likely, but because they envenomate by actually puncturing the skin, and big fangs can do that through that fur. So look at that, folks. He's only about 7-8 meters from us, and you would not know that there is a leopard in the long grass there, would you? You would not know it unless you stepped on him. But we're going to move forward and see if we can get into a better position. What a marvelous afternoon we are having. George, leopards get sick from all sorts of things, I suppose, and you want to know they're more likely to get sick from a virus or bacteria. I really don't know. I mean, there's what kind of bacteria? You know, like they got a very strong constitution when it comes to food, and the meat that they eat is often rotting and probably loaded in all sorts of bacteria and things. So, but they seem to digest that quite well. Very strong digestive guts, and yeah, there are viruses around. I don't really know too much about viruses and bacteria and animal diseases. It's definitely not a strong point of mine. And our leopards do get prone to TB. Some leopards that feed on buffalo carcasses have been known to get TB, and because they don't have any kind of assistance from any other animals to help them hunt, they can lose condition quite quickly. They often develop that sort of gouty looking elbow. Lions also get TB from feeding on buffalo, and they do okay because they've got the pride to help them. But it is recorded in a number of leopards. Let's go and have a look at the flat cat, who is once again very flat. Let's see if you can find him in the long grass. There he is. So I wish on the school drive they were able to see this, because they were asking, how is it possible with those spots that he is camouflaged? And most of you folks out there have seen these shots before, and I always like to do them where you pan out and you have a look at the leopard as we did before, and how invisible they suddenly become. Bright night. I'm going to think about your question for a moment. Do leopards have spots on the belly, Ferg, all the way around? Or do they have a white patch?
Like a strap.
Yeah, the leopards have got a white stripe down the middle, and that is where they've actually put on their onesie suit, because there is a zip down the middle of the leopard's tummy that they zip on their leopard spots, because that's how they change their spots, ladies and gentlemen, is that they zip off the onesie and put in another one. No, I'm only joking, but the whiteness is when a leopard is full. When a leopard is full or a lion is full, they've both got sort of white on the belly, and it probably helps them to release heat more. When they're full, they lie on their back, and they often put their leg in the air, and the fur is also probably a little bit thinner there. It enables them to sort of let air flow over that fur and to sort of take away an enormous amount of heat that the animal's potentially stored up from all that food. But why the spots are there, I don't know. It's the suit, I suppose, that they're wearing. So maybe they're also camouflaged from below when they're sitting in a tree. It's a very good question. Very good question. And I was only joking, folks. Leopards don't wear onesies, and they are not able to change their spots. It's a very old sort of children's story of how did the leopard change its spots? And the answer to that is it can't. So sorry for the huge letdown there. Well, the anticipation is building with Ralph Kirsten. I can hear the excitement in his voice from here. Let's see if he's managed to find a cat.
Thanks, Steve. Well, no, it's turned out to be a false alarm. You know, it's always once these impalas start that rutting, they really give off that alarm. And they're keeping the females in one alarm, and they go purr, 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 brr, brr. But that can be misconstrued as an alarm by another one. Then they give it off as well, and everybody then alarming basically at each other. So we did hear the birds also bump, but they could be bumped up by even an impala, that's running around chasing another impala. So but going in there and having so many relaxed impalas, so many relaxed animals, I don't see that there was a predator nearby. So we've just done a loop down by Vuyatela Dam, and we're going to just go in the region where I believe Tandi's den was initially with the little cub. So we're going to head in that direction, and I'm just keeping on the move now from this period onwards. We'll have my spotlight out shortly, and the reason being because it's getting dark, but also keeping on the move because I want to find some of these predators, because that's the reason we're here in the Sabi Sands. Lots of leopard. A bright night, that's quite interesting. Would leopards perhaps start to not have any offspring or go sterile with age? I'm not quite sure if they go sterile. I think they probably would run out of eggs. I forget the exact name for that, but females will only have so many cycles in their lifetime, and eventually I do think that they stop having that cycle and the release of the egg for them to be able to reproduce. So I think it's probably at a very late age, but once they get to that stage, I don't think that they would be receptive to males, and even if they had to be mated, I don't think that they would give birth or actually go through that process. So whether or not that means that they're sterile, I would say not, but maybe it is. Anyway, let's go back to Steve and see what he's been able to pick up for you with that leopard.
Hi everybody, I've got a leopard. My name's Steve. No, it's not, obviously. You can see that we are in the last embers of the day. We're about to arrive home, and we have found nothing further on our way up Twin Dams. We were just discussing Tingana and wondering if in fact he hadn't come from the north, perhaps, because he's now headed down towards the south. Very strange, he flushed out of the bush just over here and obviously doubled back around us after we heard the squirrel's alarm calling, and then he came back up out onto the road here. Very interesting behavior. Nice to have him back. Sad to see that he's flat on his back again. and wondering if he's not going to get up and hunt. I must say we passed the, well, what to find a point on it, large stool that he left on the road. Looked fairly healthy to me, I think. And just on the subject of whether or not they go sterile, the answer is no, I don't think they do. I think they are virile until the day they die. Let's go back to Tingana now. I will see you tomorrow.
Thank you, James, for your sterling efforts as always this afternoon. You can give Herbie a pat on the back. Well done for finding Tingana. The only disappointment this afternoon is that we moved away from the area of Hosanna, so we are not sure where he is. Maybe Ralph wants to go back into that area and see if he can drive around the block a few times to see if there is a moving cat, because it appears that Tingana's 400-meter walk has tired him out. So we are going to go into infrared very, very soon, Bex, if that is okay with everybody in final control. Okay, 1, 2, 3, there we go. Look at that. How incredible. It's one of the very interesting things about this job is that we can sit here and I can have direct feedback from all sorts of people all over the world. As a guide, you get stuck with a selection of people for a number of days, and you have to deal with their personalities, and you have to deal with the knowledge that they have or don't have. And Bex's personality, of course, is sparkling. But here we on a movie set exactly, or a film set, where we've got directors and we've got cameramen, and you know, the guides in the lodge industry are normally the sort of the dominant species, should I say. And out here we are just one of the low-ranking individuals who do a lot of the work, but there's a lot more work done behind the scenes and all the technical stuff that goes on. The real champions are the technicians, the tech team, the ladies doing their endless amounts of typing. I think we've got the best part of the job. We get to spend our time out here sitting with leopards, talking about leopards, and then fielding questions from people all over the globe. And you know, I've always learned from my guests, because you'll quite often get a guest who's a doctor or he's a botanist or whatever it might be, and it always pays to ask that person questions. And what I'm so blessed in this job is that so many of you people have got an immense amount of knowledge. Either it's through your own studies and own practice, or it's from watching the show and learning it from other people before myself. So I find it marvelous how quickly a lot of the viewers came on board and said, that is not Hukumuri, Steve, that is Tingana, and then you know exactly why. And I think that's awesome. So thanks for correcting me. I do admit, and I will admit, that when we first saw him in the road, I called James and said, it looks like it's Tingana. But then, because of his scent marking, he put me off. But I'm not going to let that be an excuse. Okay, so we are, Bex, if we can go back to colour, please. We have got a little sliver in the sky. We are going to look at the beginnings of the moon in the west. Isn't that a glorious afternoon? Don't worry, folks. I'll keep my eyes on Tingana and make sure he doesn't slip away. Apparently there's some deep breathing coming off the back there, Ferg. Are you breathing very deeply at the sign of the moon? Is your werewolf getting ready for the oncoming full moon and the big party you're going to in a week's time? That might be it. Look at that. Just the sliver. It was new moon yesterday, and this is the first crescent of the moon coming forward, a little fingernail sliver, as it'll progressively get larger and larger as it moves across the sky. 29 days to the lunar month, and between 51 and 54 minutes it will rise later each day, which I find amazing. How many of you out there are singing the song in your head right now? Not that one, Bex. Andrew, it's very beautiful. And an interesting little factoid there is it takes 8 seconds for the light reflecting off the moon from the sun to reach us. 8 seconds. Someone's gone and done the math there. I never know how anyone works these things out, but I would never ever pretend to know too much about the deep mathematics that goes into all of the postulations that go around. No, hang on, I apologize. It's 1.3 seconds from the moon. There's 8 seconds directly from the sun. Apologize, I'm getting my factoids mixed up. 1.3 seconds. Conrad, one of the techies there in camp, he was getting upset with me. I'm sorry, Conrad. I'm sorry, sir. 1.3 seconds reflection from the moon and 8 seconds from the sun, which is quite incredible how anyone's worked any of that out. A beautiful shot of the marula tree. Beautiful, beautiful afternoon with the Duke of Djuma. This is your territory, sir. Claim it. It is rightfully yours. Don't let that hukumuri move in and take it without a fight. Well, Ralph has not given up yet on the search. He's got his lights blazing. Let's see how he's feeling about finding a spotted cat.
Well, I'm not too bothered that I haven't found one, because I know sooner or later we will. But, yeah, we're checking out all the little spots where we may have a good chance. And this is coming down into the little stream section. Wonderful territory or place for leopard here. We've been seeing a couple of old signs of leopard, a bit of scat that's been lying around, and it's quite nice now. All the night birds are starting to wake up. Ruth, with leopards, they will walk around and renew their scents pretty much every day, because every day leads a new chance for another animal to move into your territory. So they'll walk around on a daily basis, sometimes twice a day, marking, scenting. It depends on how many leopards are in the area as to how much they actually scent mark, because the more there are, the more aggressive they need to be in their stance of protecting their territory. So they will spray more and often defecate in more places to give the scent mark for the other animals to realize that there's lots of them around, or that they're trying to keep their space. An animal that is possibly trying to keep on the low down because it's been persecuted by other males or something like that, then they won't mark as much, and they can actually stop marking and even just go and hide their scat off in a different spot. For now, a little bit quiet. It's the calm before the storm, I believe. We're just taking a nice little route here. We're moving a little bit now further away. We did come this side because of that information of barking impala or alarming impala. And that's also always a very good sign that there'll be some leopard in the area. Now there's an impala. He's pretty relaxed. That's normally a good sign that there's not any leopard around in the direct vicinity. Looking at all the signs. And as we were driving along just a little bit earlier, we heard some pearl-spotted owlets calling. They've got that wonderful call, and they hunt little birds. So if I hear one, what's that in the road? Probably a scrub hare, but they hunt little birds, so other birds can get scared of them and either fly off. It's probably a nightjar. Let's just see there. We are into infrared now. Yep, that's a wonderful nightjar there. So we've got the nice night vision on. And it's probably a fiery necked. Yes. Now, if you look in there closely, they've got all those little feathery hairs around their bill. And that helps because they hunt in the dark. And that helps when they get close to an insect. They can feel it as it's right on its last little pathway into its mouth so that they don't miss it. So it's like bristles on the side. And they've also got a very specialized little toe as well. But, we've actually been able to see a couple of these little birds with injuries and so on up close. And then you can see those real bristles on the bill. And look at that eye. How that is so wide, entrapping all the light because it's a nighttime hunter, and he's nocturnal now. We do say that these birds are crepuscular, active at dawn and dusk. Rassen, these birds generally find themselves in the middle of the road. We see them in the middle of the road a lot, and you're wondering why. Well, it is a good spot for them to go from there to catch insects, and they can see where the insects are coming. They would sometimes in nature, just straight nature. Now let me see if I also put my there the lights go off completely, so I've got my lights on him. But in nature, they'd probably go to a bare patch, like a sodic site, or where there's a lot of salts on the ground, and then that leads to there not being any grass. And they sit there in those little patches and flit off and catch insects from there. Or they might sit on a termite mound, or in this case, a nice open patch of road, where they can then, from there, identify targets, insects, and they'll then zone in on it. Lots of moths, lots of the nighttime flyers, which are mostly moths. You get crane flies, and I think predominantly moths that they will feed on. And we do say a nice little tune with birds. I like to use tunes and rhymes or rhythms, whatever you can call it, to remember. I think it's a little bit far, but there's lots of birds, night birds calling behind us, pearl-spotted owlets and everything. But I normally use little rhymes, try to remember. And with the fiery-necked nightjar, it's a good Lord deliver us, because he does and I'm not very good at it, not as good as the pearl-spotted owlet, but he does a okay, very bad. But good Lord deliver us. So that's what he'll call. Now, as we drive forward, I don't want to disturb him, but he'll be flying off anyway very soon to catch an insect. But we'll just see how he does fly up. Very similar to owls, very silent flight. And they've actually got on the bottom side of their wings special feathers that breaks the air current that passes over it, so that you don't hear the whoosh of the flight. Now, we do sometimes have to just put the light off, which means that he will fly up, because they do get a bit stunned by the light. Now, he's going to fly up shortly. I hope he will. You'll see that little black dot coming up. There he goes. And off he flits. And off he goes for his little hunt. Now, we're still on the hunt, and we're going to continue hunting for that leopard that's eluding us. I'm not sure which one we're going to find, because we've got Tingana on the other side. Doug, the perch sites of nightjars during the day can be just in a little bit of brush. They do stay quite low, and they stay out of harm's way, but very still, very quiet, and they do find themselves a little patch on the ground. And one of the amazing ones, well, you know what? We're going to go back to Steve, where was still with Tingana, and he's found his little patch, like I was speaking of.
He is enjoying his patch on the ground very, very much. Not quite sure if he's going to get up and move, but as you all know, as soon as we start rolling the credits, he'll probably climb up and start moving, as is the wont of these leopards from time to time. Just going to keep quiet for a moment and see if you can hear the fiery neck nightjar in the background. That was my imitation of it. That was me, Bex, but it is calling from the distance. I thought maybe you'd be able to pick it up on the ambient, but it doesn't appear to be. I'll play it for you, because those of you out there probably haven't heard. And the story behind the call that they call it, I mean, okay, let's keep listening. I'm going to play it for you now, because I'm not sure if you heard it very clearly. And that is a very characteristic African sound in the night. And the story behind it goes, and a lot of people try and say that the nightjar is saying, "Good Lord, deliver us." And if you kind of phonetically do it, it kind of works. And where that came from, apparently the story goes, is from Percy Fitzpatrick. If any of you know who he is, he was the writer of Jock of the Bushveld, very famous movie and book that was done many years ago, of sort of people moving into the Kruger area with ox wagons and doing trade between sort of Leidenburg, which is just up the mountain, and all the way down to sort of Mozambique, back in the day when things were very different to what they are now. And he was a transport rider. He used to move oxen and cargo and things like that. And the story goes that one night he was lost from his, I think the caravan or whatever, the ox wagon trail stopped, and he went off for a toilet break or whatever it might be, and he got a bit disorientated in the beginning, and he got lost, and the fiery neck nightjar, he heard it, and it was saying something that sounded quite similar to "Good Lord, deliver us," and apparently it attracted him back. He followed its sound, and it attracted him back to the encampment where everybody was, and he was saved. And that is apparently the story of that phonetic use of the "Good Lord, deliver us." I prefer the whistle myself, but struggle to do it very well. Okay, folks, well, we're going to stay with Tingana for the remaining minutes of the show. Let's go back over to Ralph and see if he's found anything at all.
Well, no, not yet. We haven't particularly found too much, but we're trying another little angle now. I'm just going to move through the river line. I hope we keep our signal, everybody, because I know it can be a little bit patchy when I come down here. But if we do lose signal, well, I'll just have to jump out of the river again. What's that up there? That's a scrub hare. It's coming towards us. They do get quite disorientated with the light. So try not to keep it too much on him, but we'll just stop here. You can, did I leave it too long? There he is. That is your Cape scrub hare. Okay, so these are herbivorous animals, the Cape scrub hare, and unfortunately he's now run off. And they're quite wonderful, actually, because they utilize all the food that they eat. They'll eat lots of grass, and then they defecate, and then they will eat their defecation or their dung, and they will pass it through again, and they can even do it 3 or 4 times through their system. So, and that's the same dung. So they really make the most of that food that they feed on. Okay, everyone, I'm moving forward so that I think the signal might be dropping off a little bit, but I'm still going to carry on the hunt. Let's go back to Steve, who's still with a cat at least.
We are indeed with our cat. And hopefully Ralph, moving through the Milwaukee there, if it comes out the other side, might be able to find Hosanna on the prowl. That is where he caught that scrub hare last night. Lady Starfire, I have no idea if animals in Africa get dementia with age. If you recall, humans are animals, and we do get dementia. I don't know about animals at all. I'm honestly not too sure about that. And there's never been anything that I've read. I wouldn't know how you'd be able to record that or measure that in an animal at all either. I mean, elephants get quite old, and they seem to sort of still figure out their routes and know where they're going. They don't seem to be lost in space. They seem to find their way around. But it is an interesting question. Oh, there's some movement. His ears are twitching. We are still in infrared, and it took Ferg a moment after getting back into infrared after leaving the moon to find Tingana again in the long grass. And while we talk about the moon once again, I must humbly apologize, ladies and gentlemen, that I was again corrected by Conrad from FC. It is 8 minutes for the light from the sun to reach the earth. Don't know what is happening with me tonight. 8 minutes and apparently 20 seconds for the heat to bring the life force to the planet Earth. And we have another look at the moon as it's slowly descending, and will disappear in the next probably half hour or so as it sets in the west following the sun. Here we go. Let's see if you can do it again, Ferg. Can you find him? Isn't that incredible? We know where he is. He's right there. We think he's right there. I think you were on the right spot before, Ferg. Oh, there he is. There he is. Isn't that incredible? We know where he is. This is the colors, infrared. This is kind of what animals are going to be seeing at night. So obviously without the brightness, try and pick out the detail there. See how good those spots work, how blending in they are, so camouflaged. Here he is. Oh, you can see his face. He's having that beautiful stretch on the floor. Oh, he's giving himself a cuddle. Oh, it's good to hug yourself every now and again. Show yourself you love yourself. And then when you're a solitary cat, I think it's very important. Hugs every day are very important. Russian animals have much better light visual at night when the moon is full, and it is harder for leopards and lions to hunt when the moon is full because the herbivore animals or the prey animals can see them coming. I mean, I can actually even see animals in a clearing when the moon is bright. So what we normally find, through my experience, and I'm not saying that animals don't hunt during full moon, but what I normally see in my experience is that predators, because they fail and fail and fail on a full moon, they often do territorial calling and scent marking and moving around sort of to just reclaim and remark their areas, and because the failed attempts just are numerous when the moon is full. But when it is very dark, they have a much better chance of sneaking up and getting much closer to the prey animals. When the moon is full, they do not have that chance. They are spotted long before they can get to them. And lions and leopards need to get within very good striking range of an animal before being able to launch their attack. But I'm not saying it does not happen on full moons, but it is much less likely to be successful. So Bex is talking in my ear, just informing me of little updates, and she is one who thoroughly enjoys hugs, talking about hugs about the leopard and himself. Bex is very giving with hugs, or forthcoming with hugs. And I truly believe men should hug more. Real men hug. I like to hug other men. I don't see any problem with that. How many of you out there, real men, like to hug other men? I think it's an important part of human nature. There's some sort of there's some stigma associated with it I think is complete nonsense. Real men should be in touch with their sexuality. Wow, Bex, that is an amazing statistic. Bex from FC has just fed in to my ear that the human being needs about 89 hugs a day to fend off depression.
I think she said 890.
Did she say 890? I think she said 89. Did she say 890?
Yeah.
Bex? 89. Fergus, stop your nonsense.
Stop your hugging, you damn hippies.
89 hugs a day. So let's just say 90 hugs a day. Oh, 8 to 9.
900 hugs a day.
Okay, 8 to 9. Okay, Bex is getting very confused here with us. So 8 to 9 hugs. So let's just say 10 hugs are a nice round number. If you can get 10 hugs a day, I think you will fend off all sorts of weird and wonderful things that creep into the human mind. It also makes us feel, Ferg is saying, don't just randomly hug people. First, get their consent. I watched a wonderful sort of short clip of a guy standing in a very busy street, something like a London busy street or something like that, a pedestrian street, and he had a sign saying free hugs, and people were walking down the road, and the amount of people that ignored him was ridiculous, but the amount of people that stopped and gave him a free hug, he just said free hugs here. And he stood there and he hugged everybody, and you could see the look on people's faces afterwards. So many of the people actually ended up joining him and taking his sign from him, and then standing there for hours and hugging random strangers walking down the street. And just the energy you could see in their eyes, to me, was just phenomenal. Phenomenal. And I think it's very important for us to hug. Our parents, a hug like a smile can go a long way, says Bex, which I think is marvelous. And it's very part of our human nature, We should be living in communities with lots of people. Say again, Ferg? Ferg is being naughty. I'm not sure what he said there, but I'm not going to repeat it. Oh, there we go. There must be about 10 minutes to go for the show. Tingana is sticking his head up. Yes? No. What have you heard, my boy? I was just checking Twitter a little while ago, and I noticed how many of you out there are thoroughly enjoying seeing the Duke back in his domain. It is really, really nice to have him back again, and hopefully we'll be able to stick with him a bit more this week. Maybe he's going to stick around and form a defensive line between Tandi and Talamba and that rival Hukumuri, who last was seen actually not very far away from where Tingana, we found him, not very far away from there. So I'm sure he has been walking around and smelling the interlopers' tracks and urine spraying. But right now, he does not have a concern in the world. I'd love to get you a better shot, folks, but this is all we have for you at the moment. It's an award-winning shot, says Bex. Just like the Webby Awards, which Safari Live is in the running for 3 of them. And if you have not voted yet, please Google and check out the Webby Awards and go down there. There's a link for each of the awards, and if you feel like it, please just put your name down and send it through. Vote for Safari Live. If we deserve it, I think we do. Especially seeing as Ferg and I produced 2 cats for you on this marvelous Tuesday.
Tuesday.
Is it a Tuesday? It is a Tuesday.
Tuesday indeed.
Tuesday evening in Djuma in South Africa. We get a bit confused with days of the week out here because we don't have normal sort of lives. It just goes on, and you wake up and work, and we never really know what day of the week it is. I think when it's not a school drive, we suddenly realize, oh wow, it must be Saturday. It's actually quite romantic, Ferg, sitting here alone with you in the dark, with Tingana and the stars.
Like I said earlier, Steve, Mace lasts a long time.
The African night, the starry skies. While I have you for another moment, I'll tell you the story of the stars from the Shangans, which is where Herbie's from, Tonga Shangan speaking. They believe that the night sky, when you look up at the stars, what you are seeing is merely the blanket that the sun has pulled over the sky, and the light is the sun filtering through the small holes in the blanket. I think it is a beautiful story. I mean, we as Westerners growing up believe all sorts of weird and wonderful stories we're told, and they all really are just made-up versions of stuff. So what's to say that all the other stories out in the world are wrong? I think that is a very well-put little sentence. Fergs agrees with me, and I'm glad I got my wording right there. I think it sounded quite nice this time, Ferg, eh? But we are going into the winter months, and above our heads we are getting a predominance of Orion's belt, which indicates to us that it is summer fading, and Scorpio rising will indicate winter nights ahead. So let's go back over to Ralph Kirsten. It's going to be probably a good night for myself and Fergus. Thank you very much. Let's go over to Ralph, who is driving around quarantine.
Thank you. And yes, we're on quarantine, and look at that wonderful setting with that. I know Steve had a look at it earlier, but now that it's getting very dark, it's getting even prettier and prettier by the second. It's really now a little sliver there. Started on the first quarter, so we're a waxing moon, and I'm a big surfer, and living down at the coast, we really live by the moon and the tides, and it's always wonderful when you've got the start or the waxing part of the moon moving towards full moon and spring tide, and hopefully that's coinciding with the nice big swell that comes in, because then we have the bigger high tide and the lower low tide, and normally making for good waves. And speaking of surfing and the ocean, let's not forget about the Dive Live Kickstarter campaign. There's all sorts going on there, and Graham and the team, everybody's been having a wonderful time up there, but doing a wonderful job at the same time. And I'm sure some of you have seen some of it. It's really wonderful stuff. Now, everyone, I have not been that lucky today. I've been on the search for these cats, but nonetheless, there's always tomorrow, and don't forget that we are heading now to the end of the show, but join us tomorrow, and then we'll see if I can catch some more. Now, thanks to Steve on the other side, and thanks to James on the bushwalk, and most of all, thanks to all of you, the viewers, because without you, this isn't possible. And what a wonderful way to end. Thank you so much. Have a good evening. See you in the morning. Goodbye for now.